Hello and welcome to the Colts Cover-2 Podcast. I am Joel A. Erickson. I am joined by my editor, Nat Newell. The Colts lost. This is the First Impressions pod. I am taping it from a hotel in Los Angeles, I think specifically Manhattan Beach, although I did not see the beach. But Nat is taping from a location in Indiana.
In my couch, which I've been sitting in since about 2 o'clock this afternoon to watch the Fever and the Colts play today.
Simultaneously, right? Basically.
Fever were at 3, so there was the second half overlap with the Colts.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is the First Impressions pod. The Colts lose today, first loss of the season. Ultimately, I think this is maybe a charitable big picture view of it. But this is kind of the game that you were talking about in our last pod on Wednesday, where, they lose the game, but I don't think you necessarily feel worse about the Colts in general as a team. It's not like they got blown out. It's not like they honestly probably should have won the game. And so I think if you're looking for competitiveness terms, I don't think you should necessarily be out on the 2025 Colts after that game.
Well, what strikes me, two things strike me. Number one, they should have lost. They literally were losing the Broncos game when time expired. They should have lost that game. They probably should have won this game. So they're right where you expect them to be. The other thing I always find interesting is people, when you're a fan of a team that doesn't have a good record, you always say, oh, there's this game that they lost and that game that they lost, and there's 5 games that, 3 plays in each game. Well, you lose them because you don't make those plays. That means you don't have enough talent. This is sort of the reverse. Colts had to make numerous mistakes to lose this game, and that probably speaks well to the talent that they have on the roster.
I think the other thing is just like you think about that Denver game, and there's an obvious reason to think about the Denver game from last year.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to, I think, very quickly once we get into the categories. But in that game, they made mistakes like this, and they lost by 18. In this game, they made mistakes like that, and they lost by 7, and were leading it late. I think that probably it just feels like so far, if you're looking at point differential, which I know is sort of is something that I know Chris Ballard looks at to measure how good a team is. If you're looking at point differential, I think you probably feel like this first 4 games, you still feel okay about this team, despite what happened today.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird in that there were several big mistakes that cost them this game. So I feel a little weird saying this, but again, they should have won the game. And even if they shouldn't have won the game, obviously they made the mistake, so maybe they shouldn't have, but the Rams should have been undefeated. They had a weird loss to the Eagles. So to play competitively with the Rams, again, I mean, there's a lot of things to say about this game that can make you upset, certainly a fan upset, but I don't think the big picture is a problem right now. You lose to the Raiders, and maybe we have a different conversation. But right now, I don't see any reason. Whatever concerns that I had about this team coming into this game, they're probably less rather than more coming out of this game, despite the way they lost.
Let's get right into the categories. This is the First Impressions podcast. The Colts lost today, 27-20, and that means that for the first time this season, we start out with villain of the game. I know Nat likes to turn this into a competition. I don't really see how we can get through villain of the game without me picking one guy and you picking the other guy.
Yeah, this is pretty obvious. Since you wrote about it'll be posted in the Monday morning for anyone listening then. You wrote about the one obvious villain. I'll mention the even more obvious one in A.D. Mitchell. Obviously, he went. Sure looks like he's going. He makes an unbelievable play. It should be a 76-yard touchdown in which great throw. He makes about 2 great moves. First touchdown, supposed to be the first touchdown of his career. And at the 1-yard line, he starts to celebrate and just looks like the ball slipped out of his hand. what should have been a spectacular 76-yard touchdown turned into probably the worst 75-yard catch in NFL history as he fumbles it out of the back of the end zone and the Rams get the ball. That would have put the Colts, would they've been ahead at that point? I can't remember what the score was, but I mean, obviously,
yes, it would have put them up 17-13.
And and so it's just hard now. By all accounts, Mitchell is a likable guy. By all accounts, anyone who watched him play last year, you made this point. He's made a bunch of bad decisions or whatever you want to call them in his short career. So I don't know exactly where I want to come down on this, but clearly you can't lose the ball walking into the end zone. He's a whatever he is, 23-year-old who just thought he was about to score his first NFL touchdown. Shane Steichen took, for a guy who I have been critical of for his communication skills with the media, took the blame for that by saying I didn't, enforce this enough. I just don't know what you do there. I mean, obviously, Mitchell screwed up. He deserves all the blame that he gets. But he's a 23-year-old scoring his first NFL touchdown after an incredible play. How are you not going to celebrate that? So, again, he deserves everything he gets in terms of criticism, but but the obvious villain of the game. And we haven't even gotten to the holding penalty. Jonathan Taylor has a spectacular 53-yard run. Normally, the first thing I look at when there's a penalty called on a touchdown is, would they have scored the touchdown if it were, if the penalty hadn't happened? In this case, they would have scored the touchdown if Mitchell hadn't touched the defensive player. So again, Mitchell doesn't know that in the course of the play, but it was a terrible holding call on his part. So it's two terrible mistakes in this game. That literally, and I hate, there's a million plays in the game and all that to say, oh, it came down to this one play. It's really hard not to look at this, and it's 14 direct points in a game they lost by 7. It's really hard not to, put. Even though there's that's probably two other great candidates for this award. Mitchell, I think, is clearly the villain of the game. No points awarded on this because the two choices are so obvious.
He's just like. The biggest thing is what I took away from the post game, specifically Mitchell's post game, I think more than Shane Steichen's. Shane Steichen did say, yes, we have emphasized this since Jonathan dropped the ball. He didn't say it exactly that way. That I asked the question, after Jonathan dropped it, was it a point of emphasis? He said yes. But the thing that gets me, and this is one of the things that's kind of hard to get through sometimes in writing, is like when we asked Mitchell about it, this is something that Steichen said he's emphasizing, and he starts nodding like, well, the question is going on. He starts nodding and goes, yeah, letters and logos. Like it wasn't like to me, it was an acknowledgement that, yes, this is something that they have harped on. The Colts have harped on this, and he made the mistake anyway. I would say even if they hadn't harped on it, the fact that you just watched Jonathan Taylor do it last December and deal with everything that came Jonathan Taylor's way should have gotten your attention. But it sounds like that's the kind of thing that Shane Steichen has tried to ensure wasn't going to happen again. And here we are.
I do think Taylor's situation was worse. I mean, we're way below the line of acceptable is here and whatever down on the floor beneath my couch here of comparing these two things. But Taylor just put the ball down too soon. I mean, it wasn't like he was celebrating. He just put the ball down. Like I said, I understand Mitchell wanting to celebrate the play, and he just lost control of it. I mean, again, I don't know. It's a silly distinction, but I just see in my mind the Taylor one was worse. But again, they're both so terrible. Why are we discussing it?
The other thing is that the holding penalty, like that's the play that I can almost guarantee you if Alec Pierce is on the field, it doesn't happen.
Yeah, fair.
I do I think Alec Pierce can make a version of the same play A.D. Mitchell made. 76 yards or whatever. We've seen him make that type of play before. But yeah, the play that the holding penalty, they're just different players. They're different builds. They're different physicalities. He's just not making that play. It's the other thing is, and I think some fans pointed this out. I haven't had a chance to really go back and look at it yet. I think people sometimes don't know that basically for me after the game, it's just it's an 800 meter run because you're running as fast as you can, and it's not a short run. But I'm just kind of going from one thing to the other, trying to get stuff out. But some people have pointed out that if it's Pierce on the deep ball from Daniel Jones on the first drive, he probably doesn't catch it, but it also probably doesn't turn into an interception. Because Pierce, we've seen him over and over again take away, like when a ball is up like that and the defensive back has a chance. He usually kind of goes into defensive back mode and makes sure they don't get it. So that's another piece of this game for A.D. Mitchell that goes on. It's too many things in a row. I guess the big thing I was thinking was it shows you why he's played so little early in the season. He had 46 snaps in the first 3 games. He's been outsnapped by Ashton Dulin in a game before. It kind of shows you why. Like he's still this guy with all this talent. He just doesn't put it together. The other obvious fill in the game, and I don't have the numbers yet to back it up. I haven't seen the next gen stats. I just have my eyes, and they're the same as everybody else's eyes. For the second time in 4 weeks, a good play caller circled number 4 on the Colts defense and said, throw it at that guy.
Yeah, and I mean, the only question here is Xavier Howard the villain or is Lou Anarumo the villain because he insists on not playing Howard, starting Howard, and then as your story points out, they really don't have another great option. And again, injuries have played a big part of that, but they didn't need to cut Juju Brents, I don't think. I don't know what Juju Brents is doing wherever he landed. But this is sort of like we're not going to argue about this because they're both terrible. Both terrible. One terrible decision, and Howard has just not played well at all, which he acknowledged. Some people are saying, how on earth could you let him match up with Puka Nacua? And my point is, okay, but so you want Devontae Adams to have 150 yards receiving? I mean, that was the choice here. It wasn't like, I suppose you could have tried to do a little bit more in terms of mixing and matching and things like that, but then maybe they both end up with 100 yards. There was no good answer here. There was no right.
Well, the other thing with that is that I'm pretty sure that a couple of times that they did just stay to one side or the other, and Adams got matched up on Howard, and that's where the ball went. That was two of Devontae Adams' 4 catches today. He looks overmatched. He got beat down the sideline by Nacua. The one quote that he had tonight where he said that they get him the ball quickly and then they kind of they let him go to work is kind of disingenuous. I don't actually feel like that's how he beat them today. He beat him down the sideline on one ball. There was another play earlier where he should have gotten a touchdown pass on a deep ball, but Latu got pressure and forced an errant throw. There was a whole bunch of crossing routes. He's been terrible on crossers all season. I sounded the alarm on this. We talked about this on this podcast before the opener. It just felt from the beginning like this was a big risk to take. And right now, like I don't know. I don't know about their options. You can't keep playing him on every snap. You just can't.
That would be my question to you. Do you have to replace him now? Do you give him another week? How do you handle this if you're the Colts?
I think in an Anarumo world where you have personnel packages and stuff like that, maybe you can, I don't know, try to put him in situations where it's advantageous and rotate in Blackman or Edwards. I don't necessarily know that you just give like Jonathan Edwards a starting job, but you've got to do something because it's just too obvious what these offenses are doing. They just throw at 4. Like the good offenses are just lining up and throwing at 4. And I thought it was such a liability for them today. And against the Broncos, like it showed up in a big way. when you put him against a guy like Nakua, who already led the league in receiving, it just gets exponentially worse. And so I feel like they've got to come up with some kind of better plan, something to. And it just at this point, it feels like you have to reduce his snaps. We're 4 games in. He hasn't really looked good in any of them necessarily. He's been hidden in a couple because they just weren't the kind of passing attacks that really were going to, test him in that way. But yeah, I don't think we've seen anything great from him other than a fumble recovery. It's bad. It's really bad when they can just line up and just pick on one of your corners because I think Mooney Ward is actually playing pretty well, but we don't really know that because why would you throw it at him?
Right.
So that's the easy category. I really don't think there's any other way to go with these. I think you can go. I think you could go Anarumo if you wanted to zag, but Howard it was so egregious. It was such an egregious game. None of the next gen stats are up yet, but I do know what his stats are for the season. I'm curious tomorrow when I look at it when I get home, what his numbers are going to be for the season because I think he might have given up like 12 catches in a game.
That's crazy. I know in Greg Doyle's column, which is posted right now, he said he was 146th out of 152 in terms of however I can't even remember what ranking system he was working with, but that's bad. That's really bad. There's no way. There's just no way around that.
And it matches what we're seeing too. So
yes,
we'll those are the 2 obvious ones. We'll move on now to hero of the game. From a hero of the game standpoint, who was a hero for the Colts today? Who was a hero for the Colts today in this game against the Rams?
I went with the guy you just mentioned, Shavarius Mooney Ward. The fact that Devontae Adams, who's really, really good, we really only heard from him when Howard was covering him. Again, does it end up mattering because they lost the game? I guess not, but you got to pick someone as a hero in this game. And like you said, we don't notice him because he's doing his job so well. I haven't really noticed him in any game. He missed a game, but I haven't noticed him in the games he played. I thought, you shut down you basically shut down one of a pair of great receivers. So he's my hero of a game in a game where it's not. There's some other choices, but I thought he was the one most deserving of the award.
He also, I think the touchdown that he gave up was not his fault. I think he was playing outside leverage purposefully, believing that he had a safety help to the inside. This is just kind of going off of the way the play looked and honestly his reaction to the play afterwards. But I think that was supposed to be some safety help for him. My hero of the game is going to be Tyler Warren, the tight end. It probably was going to be Jonathan Taylor if his best play doesn't get erased because 4.5 yards per carry against a defense that just gave up 2.4 is pretty good. But I think it's Warren. I know he had a couple of penalties, including an offensive pass interference that erased a big play, but he also made a ton of big plays. You get the touchdown with the running, but I just think the receiving more so than the running right now. Like the receiving is good enough as it is. It's wild to me to think that back in the draft cycle, we were talking the way draft analysts were talking about it was that Colston Loveland was the downfield threat and Tyler Warren could only do like little short catches because that was clearly wrong. They were clearly wrong about that 4 games into the season. He's got plenty of explosive plays and has gotten open a ton. I think it's interesting. I think it's interesting like how good he's been as a receiver and how well they've gotten him open. 5 catches for 70 yards. Like I said, he had the other one, but he had the other one that got erased by the offensive pass interference. Did you get a good look at that, by the way?
I thought it was clear. I was more listening than watching at the time, but there was no debate about it on TV. And also, he's clearly a terrible Wildcat quarterback. But it's beginning to get harder and harder to take my stance of rookie tight ends. Not that they're not that they're not going to be productive when he's been, I don't know, one of the most productive rookie tight ends in NFL history. So
he might be a Pro Bowler.
Hope up.
He might be a Pro Bowler at this rate.
Yeah. It's crazy.
And like a real Pro Bowler, not one of those fake ones that shows up after everybody else quits.
And it's, I mean, again, to be clear, it's really hard to be a really good tight end as a rookie because they put so much on tight ends in the NFL, and he's doing it. I mean, Blake Bowers obviously had an incredible rookie year last year. It was like the best. I don't know. When you look at rookie tight end stats, you get that unbelievable Mike Ditka season from whenever, from 50 years ago. And then there's nobody else until Blake Bowers. So, but now, Warren's right there. I did not look up what the record, but he's been in the top 5 for receiving yards and catches after each game. It does really look like he's going to be a star for them.
I mean, he's currently on pace. I know you love on pace stats. I think he's on pace for 70 plus catches and 1,000 yards.
Which is insane for a rookie tight end. And he does all the other stuff too. It's not
he does all the other stuff on top of it. Yeah.
If they'd stop running the ball with him, he'd be perfect.
So that gets us to unsung villain of the game. I think now we can get into some of the more creative stuff here. Unsung villain of the game. Who do you have for unsung villain of the game? I keep giving you first serve here, which is, not doing myself any favors.
I'm not in. There's a couple choices here. I guess I'm going to go with Nick Cross. He got badly beat on that one touchdown pass in a game that was decided by a touchdown. Still had a good game, made lots of tackles, but in a game you give up 375 yards of passing. I'm comfortable putting Cross. You might have a bet. There's some other choices here. I didn't want to take away one possibility from you because you had it in your 10 thoughts after the game. So unless you have any Nick Cross thoughts, we can move on to yours.
I was going to say Bernard Ryman.
Yeah, he's the better choice.
And there were a couple other places I could go. I had multiple honorable mentions for this. But Ryman, for somebody who just signed a big deal, and I think most Colts fans felt pretty good about him signing the big deal, he's really kind of struggled through the first couple of games. He gave up a sack in the opener. There were 4 penalties. I think he got penalized at least twice today. There might have been 3 times. And then he gives up what ended up being, really the game-changing sack. He got 2. So it's 2 penalties. It's a hold. It's a false start. And then they've got a 2nd and 15 and near the 2-minute warning, which that was set up by the Mitchell holding. It's crazy how all of this stuff just comes back to these couple plays. But they've got a 2nd and 15, and 2nd and 15 is manageable, especially the way the Colts have been throwing it from an accuracy standpoint. They're at the Indy 42 to get yourself a first down and maybe have a chance to win the game there. And he got beat really bad by Jared Verse. Daniel Jones really didn't have a chance. He gets sacked from behind, fumbles. It gets recovered by the Colts, but it becomes a 3rd and 28. And they don't really have any options, and they have to punt it away. That sack given up, I think, along with some of those penalties, because earlier in that drive, it was his false start who kind of started some of this stuff. It's just been a rough start to the year for somebody who's supposed to be the 2nd best offensive lineman behind Quentin Nelson.
Yeah, I mean, and it's been such a fast rise. You have to think that the intangibles with him are really good, and that this is maybe a blip on the screen. I hadn't really thought about it until I read your 10 thoughts, but it was insightful there. Another choice for the unsung villain here is connected to this is Chris Ballard, because he took Leatu Latu over Jared Verse, and Verse is better. Latu did show flash today. I don't know if we'll have room for him in one of these awards, but another honorable mention for unsung villain. Based on that decision and the decision and just not having been able to find a pass rusher in the draft in his 9 years here.
Yeah, I think my other honorable mention was going to be just the run defense. It looked bad.
I think it got better towards the end of the game, but Williams looked good. They kept on TV. They were talking about how good he was. So
it ended up okay, but I just thought the way the game started, like they could have really been in a bad position if the Rams hadn't committed some of their own stupid penalties because of the way they were running it. So that gives us the next one, unsung hero of the game. This one I feel like is going to be a little bit harder today. But we'll go with this.
When we're keeping score here, you're gonna fall behind significantly here because the unsung hero of this game is the word gaff after A.D. Mitchell. Is there a better description of what Mitchell did than the word gaff? I mean, it's not a word. I always tell people, write like you talk. I don't know if normally people don't use the word gaff, but you watch that. It's more than a mistake, it's a gaffe. That word just comes out of people's mouth who've never said it before after watching it. The definition of gaffe is a social or diplomatic blunder or a noticeable mistake. I mean, so again, everyone uses the word gaffe to describe what happened there. So easily the unsung hero of this game is the word gaffe to give us a description of what we watched.
It really is a good word because I think I've done this too. Well, unfortunately for Colts fans, I have done this 2 times in a row here. And I have done this 2 years in a row now, where like you start to write mistake, and you're like, you're right, mistake is not strong enough. You have to go with something else.
More than an error, more than a blunder. It's a gaffe.
It's a gaffe. There's no way around it. I mean, there's probably a swear word or two, but we can't really use those. This is a family podcast, or it's at the very least it's a company podcast, which is more important. My unsung hero, I was going to go with DeForest Buckner. I think on a day when the defense struggles a lot, he ends up with 8 tackles, 2 for loss. He has a quarterback hit. He rushed the passer pretty well. I haven't seen the pressure numbers yet, but I thought he rushed the passer pretty well today. And this is a guy who was dealing with a back injury earlier in the week. They clearly needed someone on defense to step forward. And I thought that some of what they got better at in the run defense was not that their defensive end suddenly got better at handling the edge. It was that Buckner was just closing down as they tried to run to the perimeter and making plays. So DeForest Buckner is mine. It's not. I think you're right. It's not as good. It's not as creative as the word gaffe.
Latu showing off. I think if we don't get to him somewhere else, this is a good place to at least mention him as an honorable mention. After the pass rush last week, I said I didn't believe it, and again they gave up 375 yards passing to Stafford. So let's not pretend that it is more than it is. But the Rams are a decent, obviously clearly Stafford's a great, throwing the ball quick, getting rid of it. So there's a little bit of hope here for the pass rush after these last 2 games. Yeah,
I thought today, and I think people disagree with me. Maybe. Well, I might save this. I'll save it. We'll save it for another category.
Okay.
Number of the day. We'll go with number of the day here.
The number of the day is 52.3. That's the yards per punt for Rigo Sanchez.
Taking Rigo from me is very good.
I know. I just couldn't. Yeah, I know. I feel bad about it, but I left you the other one. So, but to not punt at all and then to punt as well as he has, it's just amazing. He is a witch, as you say. I'll give you full credit for that one. So, but just an unbelievable day punting for a guy who's barely done any work this year.
Yeah, my number of the day is 8.2. It's the number of yards per attempt from the passing game. It's bad. I don't really have a whole lot to say other than that. Like in terms of the stuff from this game, like it really stuck out. That like the Colts, there's a lot of ways that the Colts could have won this game more handily going away, but there's a lot of ways that the Rams could have won the game more handily going away if they didn't commit some bad penalties and make some mistakes. And It was because their passing game was so good. Game day observation. That's the next one for us. Unfortunately, you were on your couch. So is your game day observation that the WNBA should not play playoff games in the middle of NFL Sundays?
No, that was okay. I watched the Fever on my phone with the volume down. Aaron Ferguson is our Fever editor, so I let him take the lead on that while I was paying attention to the Colts game. My game day observation, again, as you say, it's a little harder to do sitting on the couch than at the game, but the officiating seemed a little weird. I don't. This is another one where I don't think there was like, oh, how dare they call this against the Colts, and the Colts had a ton of penalties. It was 11 for 88 yards or something like that. But it just, and they, especially at the end of the game, I'm not saying they were necessarily wrong, but they gave the Colts plenty of chances too, calling penalties on the Rams. So it was just lots of flags flying around out there in that game.
My game day observation. So the Colts have not been to SoFi Stadium yet. Everyone has talked about it as if it's the third wonder of the world. I'm going to be honest. Meh. So part of it is it's built into the ground. It's one of the stadiums that is built into the ground. So like that picture you've all seen with the kind of space agey looking thing. It's shorter. It's not as it's a shorter building than you think it is, coming from ground level when you walk up. But I think the other thing is just that when I was inside, I will say this: it looks really good from the field. Standing on the field, looking up, looks great. But fans don't get to do that; they sit in the stands. And from the press box, I just didn't think. I think there's other stadiums that are more impressive. I was expecting to be wowed by SoFi, and I was not.
Yeah, I've never really the object of a stadium is to have a seat so you can watch the game, and I really just don't. I mean, like there are some that are huge and impressive in that standpoint, certainly. And as you say, that's or sort of the opposite of what you're saying. When that's how it's built in terms of is it on top of the ground and just going out like crazy. See a lot of college stadiums like that are just enormous. And then certainly whether Gainbridge Fieldhouse is real comfortable, Lucas Oil is real comfortable, but I'm sitting in my seat watching the game. I don't, it's nice that you have more bathrooms and you have more concession stands, but I'm not sure that the difference between let's say the below average stadium and a great stadium, I just don't know that there's going to be that much difference to me in terms of now an awful stadium is another story, but from below average to great, I just don't know how much of a difference there's going to be for me.
I have sort of my unofficial rankings in my head, or tiers, I think would be the better way to put it. And I was expecting, the way people talk about it, I was expecting to put it in like Minnesota Stadium. When you sit in that, the stadium looks like a painting. And then I would say the other stadiums I like have more to do with like atmosphere. Like I really like the way Philly looks sitting in it, but it also is just the noise and everything like that. It's not as bad as like Jacksonville. Jacksonville's terrible. Trying to think of another terrible stadium. There used to be some really awful ones. Washington's current one is the worst one in the league. Like it just looks. It's not just because it just looks awful. It looks awful. It's old. It needs to be replaced. But to me, the biggest thing is just like the way it looks while I'm sitting in it, and it doesn't have some atmosphere. It doesn't have the atmosphere because it's LA. There were a lot of people wearing Rams gear, but it just doesn't feel like a fan base that's in. And then the other thing is, I think looking down on it, it kind of gave me like a template-y feel, like I'm sitting in a Madden game, and I didn't love that. So that's my game day observation. That brings me to my weekly category: 3 football things that gave me joy. Number 1, you tried to take this from me, but I'm still not going to. Rigoberto Sanchez, his first punt of the day, being not only a punt that he was able to bounce back and keep inside the 5, but it was an absolute bomb of a punt. And that is not something that you can usually say about those punts. You don't usually have punts like that where they're like 56-yarders and they don't go out the back of the end zone. He managed to both crush the punt and bring it back. Rigo's a witch. I always love punt play. Also, the Colts fans also know that I really, really like gunner play. Ashton Doolin was fantastic today. The other 3 punts that Rigo hit, they didn't have a chance to return them, except for one, which this will be my second football thing that gave me joy. I love it when a punt returner doesn't signal for a fair catch, and he absolutely should have. and the Rams punt returner, whose name is escaping me right now, is sitting under it. And I'm going, Doolin just beat his guy. He just beat his guy. And I think an NFL football game just ended in a tie. That's no fun.
No,
but yeah, so I love I'm watching it. He's sitting under it. He thinks he's got room, and I'm like, Doolin just cleared his guy. You probably shouldn't have done that. And he tried to get out of the way. It didn't work. It wasn't quite the explosive hit that you normally like for that stuff. But yeah, it was still a pretty good one. And then I enjoy. It didn't work, but I enjoy all of the Tyler Warren fullback stuff. Any Tyler Warren fullback stuff feels like a different era of football. They had a play called back where they lined him up at fullback in the offset eye again and ran with Taylor, and it was going to get big yardage, and they got called back. So there was that play on top of the plays at the goal line. Like I with apologies to Zaire Franklin, I kind of want to give Tyler Warren his 44 back. We're going to play him at fullback this much. He should get his 44.
Yeah. We've had probably, I don't know if we had this conversation on the podcast, but we've certainly had it in our normal discussions. There's all these players who come out that people say, oh, look at that. You can use them in so many different ways and be creative. And there's like 4 coaches in NFL history who are creative. So it is good to see Steichen trying to use Warren in that way. The running stuff, I don't know that's really worked. Obviously, he did score a touchdown today, and it was all on his effort, bowling in. But so I'm torn on that, in that I'm not sure it actually works. But I'm glad Shane Steichen's trying, because too few coaches try that stuff.
That brings us to the more important categories. The Colts lost today, so that means that for the first time this season, we are doing too much blame and too little blame. Nat, who's getting too much blame for today's loss?
I'm going to go with Lou Anarumo for the actual. Well, I guess if you're saying who gets too much blame for this loss, Lou Anarumo is certainly can't get too much blame for this loss because of the Howard thing and the 10 men on the field. At the end of the day, whoever messed up, he's the defensive coordinator. It's his fault. From a big picture standpoint, though, I think like this shouldn't change anyone's opinion on Lou Anarumo. At times, Stafford was confused today, which I don't think you probably see from him too much. I still much prefer what Anarumo is trying to do, except for Xavier Howard, than what we had watched for the last several years. And again, I don't know that anyone's saying, "Hey, let's fire Lou Anarumo today." But I think the pluses still outweigh the minus, despite some rather ugly moments today. So I'm going with Lou Anarumo for that.
My too much blame was, and I did put this in my 10 thoughts, but after thinking about it a little bit more, I think there's probably a little bit too much blame on just not running the ball very much. Because, and the reason I say I think that there's probably too much blame there is that it's a good run defense. Jonathan Taylor he's really playing at just an elite level right now. But they were moving the ball. They were moving the ball. They had the lead. They should have had a much bigger lead. And they were doing it through the air. And if you go back and look at the Eagles game from last week, you can see why they did that. Because Saquon Barkley only averaged 2.4 yards per carry. It kind of felt like there were some – if you go back and look through those last couple drives too, you'll see some Taylor runs where he got one or none, and they kind of got behind the sticks. I kind of get it. I get the game plan. I actually don't think the game plan to run late was a bad one in this one, because they were moving the ball and they should have had the lead when they did. So I think this is Jonathan Taylor looks great. But if you think back to what the formula has been all season, they have used him more in the beginning of games, but it's generally been for not a lot of profit, and then they've gotten in the second half. So doing that makes sense to me. If they hadn't been moving the ball, if they were punting over and over and over again, I might be more upset about that. That's too much blame for me.
Well, Mitchell doesn't have that holding call. The stats look totally different, and everybody has a different opinion. So,
well, that's what Steichen said when he was asked about the run game. He was like, if there's no holding call there, we hit the big one, and that's pretty much what the last couple of weeks have been.
Yeah,
have been Jonathan Taylor making the most out of some rough situations, and then hitting a big one, and it makes his yards per carry look incredible. So that kind of makes sense to me. Too little blame. Who do you have for too little blame for today's game?
I went with Daniel Jones again. This is sort of the opposite of my Anarumo take, in which Jones did not play well today. And some of the things that we've all been worried about, or some of the things we were worried about coming into the season, showed up today. The turnovers. I mean, not like he ever threw a ton of interceptions, but both were underthrown. I mean, the deep ball was a concern. They're still right there, so I don't want to make too much out of it. But I think he caused some problems today, which he hadn't done in the first 3 games. The big picture is he wasn't going to go all year without throwing an interception. This is more of a small picture than big picture thing. But I've got Daniel Jones with too little blame.
My too little blame is connected, because I think the too little blame goes to the entire offensive line. It just felt like, if you go back and watch that game, especially the first half, it felt like there was pressure on just about every snap from different places on the line. Now, I think there were some Dalton Tucker moments that I think you expect to happen. He's not Matt Gonzalez. There's a reason he's back up. But it was the rest of the line too. Ryman. There was one play where basically the entire middle of the offensive line got obliterated. I think there was a sack on Jones. It was a bad play. I'm not remembering it now, but I remember seeing people falling on the ground. They didn't give Jones the protection he needed today. It was he had to get rid of it. On top of that, like I said, the run game was mostly Taylor. I just don't think the offensive line played all that well today. I think they kind of got beat by Los Angeles' defensive line, and that's not a good place to be, because that's supposed to be like part of the Daniel Jones formula, and part of like every formula for the Colts is the offensive line playing well.
I had offensive line as one of my possibilities as too. Tucker was on there, but then, like you said, I mean, he had a bad play early in the game. Quentin Nelson had a penalty late in the game. Yeah, I mean, that's an easy choice there too, in terms of too little blame.
Okay, that brings us to our last 2 categories. These are the categories where we talk about like the storylines that are going to be there. One to throw away and go on, one to go on. We always start with one to throw away. One to throw away. What is one thing we are talking about right now that is not going to be something we're talking about going forward?
I mean, it's pretty much what I said at the beginning of the podcast, which is I don't think this, like, obviously they lost. You don't want to lose. It was a kind of an awful way to lose, but they should be 3-1, and they're 3-1. That if anyone thinks this is some kind of, I have to change my opinion on the Colts based on this loss today, I think you're wrong. I still think you come out of this feeling, if you had told me they were 3-1 and they were going to lose to the Rams by 7 points because they shot themselves in the foot twice, I just can't believe not taking that at the beginning of the year. So I don't read too much into them losing this game.
One to throw away for me is just going to be the idea that this defensive line is just, we've kind of gotten in a spot here like where no matter if an opposing offense is playing well, the take is that the defensive line is not playing well, and therefore they should all be thrown out. I think you have to throw that take out, because I think just watching it in the stadium, my takeaway was that they were getting consistent pressure. I thought Latu probably had his best game. There were a couple other pressures. You got a really interesting game from Adetomiwa Adebawore where he was making plays. People have been hoping for a defensive tackle to show up for years. They actually got one. I don't know that I feel any better about the pass rush as a consistent entity, but I think in terms of this game, this was not a pass rush game. I think I'm throwing away the idea that this was a pass rush fault. This was the secondary. Matt Stafford had the easiest options to get the ball out of his hands quickly. And I actually thought that they made him – there's no way that man wants to scramble 3 times or 4 times or whatever it is. Like, he's clearly not feeling himself. There were a lot of throws where we were like, man, that doesn't look like Stafford. I thought they did a pretty good job of getting pressure and moving him off of his spot. And I generally am kind of harsh on that. So I feel like when I feel like they did a good job, it's usually a little bit better.
I mean, to me, this is the first time I've watched them this year and said, "Oh, okay, maybe the pass rush has a shot." There's a legitimate chance. I don't think they're going to be some kind of dominant pass rushing team, obviously, but can they make plays from time to time? And that's another thing is no team's perfect. You gotta deal with what you got. I don't think this is going to be a shutdown defense by any stretch, but it doesn't need to be, because the offense looks like it can play if it gets out of its own way, or if A.D. Mitchell gets out of its way. So again, are they going to be a superstar defense? No, but they're going to make things hard. I mean, I just go back to watching Eberflus and Bradley's defense. If it was 3rd and 6, I'm just waiting. Okay, they're going to get the first down. What can they possibly do to stop this defense? Are there going to be more big plays that they give up? Yes, but I also think that they're going to create more big plays, and I think that balances out better for the Colts for their success than what they were doing.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think I have some concerns about the defense as a whole, and it mostly is related to consistency. That brings us to one to go on. What's something that we're talking about right now that it's going to continue to be a storyline the rest of the season? I kind of just
talking about it, and we'll see if you have a good one here, you might get the win, because I don't like this one. But I said about Spencer Schrader was one to throw away earlier. He kicked a 50-plus yarder today, and it would have been good from 60. So I'm beginning to think that he might actually be a legitimate NFL kicker. That's about as lame a pick as you can have after a game like this, but that's the best I could do.
All of his kicks today were very good. He kicked an extra point on the side of the stadium closest to us that was like one of those ones where it's a good thing that it just has to go through, because it actually goes over. Like, it was way over everything. It felt like the power and everything was really good today. I do think we should mention Spencer Schrader, because it's been sort of a sense of consternation about whether or not he's going to make long kicks, and he made one today. My one to go on is that there's going to be like this. This defense is not going to be. This defense is not going to be like a top 5, top 10 type defense. This is going to be a week in, week out, not sure what you're going to get. And I think some of that is just. I don't know what I kind of know. I think you need to move Xavier Howard, but what's the answer there? Is it Jalen Jones coming back? Lou Anarumo doesn't seem to like Jalen Jones. I don't agree with that, but that's kind of where it is. I don't think Zaire Franklin is particularly playing all that well right now. They have another linebacker issue. The defensive line is very hit or miss. I thought they played well today, but I didn't think they played well at all last week. It's just too many issues going on to be a really good defense. Now, can it be a more successful defense than the one that, finished 29th in the league last year? Yes, I think that's very possible. But in terms of a really good defense, there's too many issues going on with it right now.
Okay, well, I already said that, so I definitely get the win today, if only because of the unsung hero being. The Gaff was clearly the best answer either of us had today. So I will declare myself the win. I believe that makes me 3-1. And yes, I'm the boss, so I get to decide this. If Joel wishes to appeal, that's fine. He'll appeal to me, and he's going to lose.
Well, the worst part about this is that you're declaring winners in my game. This is my game.
Yeah, I admit I enjoy that as well. So, but please, as we left it, we did not start it with the podcast, but please like and subscribe. We appreciate you coming on. Go to IndyStar.com for all of our stories. Where Joel, as the lone beat writer, is being worn out, so at least read it so he feels more like it's worth being worn out to do it. So we thank you for listening, and we'll be back Wednesday, aiming for 3:30, back at our usual time this week, and we hope to see you then.
Yeah, we try to do 3:30, but 3:30, but you guys get it. There's schedules. Well, we're gonna do our best.
Like and subscribe.